Hello all, welcome to the Standards Committee. The first item on the agenda is election of chair for the municipal year 2020-2021. Can I have any nominations, please?
Propose Jill Burgess.
Any other nominations?
I'll second that proposal.
All those in favour of Jill Burgess to be chair?
Thank you.
You are. Jill, you're in the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask Alison? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Is it Alison I'm speaking to regarding the apologies? Yes.
Yeah, we haven't got there yet.
Okay.
Well, item 2 first.
Yeah. Vice Chair for the municipal year, please. As discussed, if anybody feels that they would wish to put themselves forward, then please make your indication, and then the group will vote on that particular person. So anybody amongst us that is entitled, so that's Mike, Michaela and Gareth, would they please, if they wish to, put their name forward then?
I'd be happy to be considered chair if the committee supported that, but I'm not precious about it.
I propose Mike Lewis in that case.
And I'd second.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you.
Any other nominations?
Any other nominations amongst you, please? None at all?
All those in
Fine.
favour?
All those in favour then of Mike being nominated, please. Thank you. So there we are, Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
The third item then is apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence from Gareth Evans and Councillor Joe Hale.
Thank you. Okay, before we move on, any disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest, please? Any to declare? Mike is putting his hand up. Can I ask what you're declaring?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't suppose it'll matter, but when we get into item 6, which is the Public Service Ombudsman report for Wales, I know we'll focus on the local authority aspect of that, but just to remind the committee, I am a member and non-executive director of Howell Our Health Board. So to the extent that that is referred to, I should just flag that interest, please.
Thank you. Any others, please?
No, monitoring officer wants to speak. Sorry, monitoring officer.
Councillor, Mike Lewis, I don't think that is an interest, actually. You're quite right, we are going to focus on the code of conduct issues of the Ombudsman's report, but in any event, I wouldn't consider that to be an interest.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah.
Okay, the next is the minutes to approve, please. Has everybody read the minutes of the previous meeting? Yes? And are there any items that need to be amended or corrected? No? So in that case, can I have a seconder for approving of the minutes, please?
Approve.
Margaret. Thank you very much. And now, if I may, Tracy, can I hand over to you to do the annual report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Agenda item 6 is the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales annual report and his annual letter for 2019-2020. On page 3, under the Code of Conduct Statistics paragraph, I would just draw your attention to the good news that the Ombudsman is reporting that there was a decrease in Code of Conduct complaints by 18% during the year 2019-20. You will know for a number of years now, the Ombudsman has been very keen and working very hard to reduce the number of complaints that are being made in town and community councils. And he does indicate that that decrease of 18% was largely due to the number of complaints in town and community councils being reduced. And quite a staggering figure there, really. It dropped from 190 to 135 during that year. The number of complaints against county and county borough councils, however, did rise, but that was slight and it only rose from 91 to 96. So I think you'd agree that's a tremendous reduction in town and community council complaints from 190 to 135 during the year. However, in saying that, the Ombudsman did note that he is still seeing, and again, this is something the Ombudsman has reported in previous years, he's still seeing tit-for-tat complaints, predominantly in town and community councils, so they can be motivated either by political rivalry or just simply clashes of personality. And again, I'm sure that in the forthcoming years, he will be trying his best to stamp out that sort of behaviour. You will know from training that I've given to both councillors and community councillors, actually, that it is itself a breach of the code of conduct to make vexatious complaints. So I'm sure the Ombudsman will be monitoring that over the course of the next year. Paragraph 2.3, again, I draw that to your attention. Some quite interesting statistics there in the breakdown of the complaints that the Ombudsman is seeing. So you'll see right at the top there, 49% of the complaints made related to promotion of equality and respect. Surprising for me, actually, as a monitoring officer, 17% also related to disclosure and registration of interests. Again, the Ombudsman's indicated he is quite concerned about the number of complaints he gets in relation to promotion of equality and respect. There has been an increase in the number of those complaints, and particularly in relation to bullying behaviour, again, relating usually to clerk employees of town and community councils. In terms of complaints withdrawn, complaints investigated, etc., the Ombudsman refers in paragraph 2.4 to the fact that only 4 complaints were referred to standards committees in Wales and only 1 to the adjudication in Wales. So again, really good statistics for the Ombudsman in terms of having to trigger standards committees investigations, or indeed adjudication panel for Wales committees. And the only other final thing, just in relation to the Ombudsman's report, it is attached to the agenda item. It is a very lengthy report. It deals with not only code of conduct complaints, but also complaints that are made against individual councils, health boards, etc. And that doesn't involve the standards committee, but you may have found it quite interesting to read, and certainly our own councillors may have found that quite interesting to read. But if I refer you to page 145, you'll see there the number of code of conduct complaints closed relating to Swansea and relating to the 3 community councils, and they are set out on page 145. I can also refer you to page 140, which is the Ombudsman's letter to the leader of Swansea Council, and that's dated 7th of September 2020. But again, the bulk of that letter actually relates to complaints that we receive as a council in relation to purported maladministration, etc. And you'll see that there is action for the council to take. The annual letter has in fact been forwarded to Cabinet, and that will be picked up by Cabinet in due course. So nothing else to add in relation to the Ombudsman's annual report. It is a for information report only. So I'll just open that up to the committee in case there's any comments or questions of myself.
Has anybody got any questions for Tracy?
Tracy, were you the monitoring officer who had to go to a town and community council by any chance?
Sorry?
Were you the monitoring officer who volunteered to visit the town and community council by chance?
No.
Oh, that's okay. Just from past experience, I thought it may have been you.
No, it wasn't. My predecessor has done many years ago. I think I know the authority. It's not one particularly local to us, but no, it wasn't me. I'm pleased to say.
Tracy, can I just ask, do you personally think that the reduction for Swansea, 4% down, is good with the amount of effort that's gone in on awareness and training, or do you think that should be better? I was just curious to know how you thought we looked.
Well, yes, I think it is good. We've had no referrals to the Standards Committee. And there is the last agenda item actually does go through the complaints that have been made against our councillors. and town and community councillors as well. And I think that shows a good record in terms of nothing being referred to the Standards Committee or the Adjudication Panel for Wales.
So again, that's down to the local, I can't remember what Swansea local
dispute resolution.
Local dispute resolution.
Well,
I think, Chair, it's down to a number of things. I think it is down to, we haven't used the local dispute resolution process, but I think it's down to, and again, there's another agenda item where we talk about the group leaders. In fact,
yes.
The group leaders will be a common theme in today's agenda, I think. But, you know, you did hear from the group leaders and the tremendous amount of work that they do as well with their own councillors.
It's a dialogue, isn't it?
Yes.
I think if that sense of fairness and well-being is transmitted, then it doesn't even get as far as vexatious and, as you said, all of the other complaints. So thank you very much. Thank you. Does anybody else want to bring anything up with Tracy, please? No? Thank you very much. So, Tracy, are going to go on to item 7. Is that you? Please, Tracy.
Hugh, do you want me to take this as well?
Either way, whatever you prefer.
I'm happy to take it. Sorry. So agenda item 7 on page 147. This is the Standards Committee annual report. So this will be a report that will go to council sometime next year. Chair, it will go in your name as usual. And I don't really have anything to add to it. I've just set out the membership of the Standards Committee, the terms of office of the Standards Committee, and also set out the annual meeting with political group leaders, chairs of committees and the chief exec, which I think was probably the bulk of your work last year. Again, as usual, we set out the questions that were asked and the outcome, and we've also put into the report some paragraph 6.5, sorry, details of the complaints and for information in terms of the Code of Conduct casebook. So I've nothing really to add to that. It is a matter for the committee as to whether you wish to add anything to the annual report that will go to council next year.
Has everybody had a chance to read, and perhaps if you've got anything further that needed to be highlighted? I think it covers everything that we discussed. I'm personally always very pleased with the meeting that we have. I think it gives a good, not only a rapport, but an understanding of really what the standards is about, and therefore it transmits to those that attend those meetings that it is a two-way street and it's collaboration. So I'm very pleased with that myself, very pleased. Does anybody else want to make any comments to that report? No? No. Okay, thank you, Chase. So,
Shall I run the vote?
yes, please.
All those in favour of the recommendation, if you could raise your hands. That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
So we're going on now to item 8, which is local government and elections bills.
Thank you, Chair. This is an interesting report, and it's really to bring to your attention the Local Government and Elections Wales Bill, which has been passed by the Senedd and will be made, will receive royal assent sometime in January next year, we anticipate. It's a massive bill. It runs to some 200 odd pages. It's got many, many parts. And for those of you that don't actually know much about this bill, it deals with everything from elections, extension of the franchise, through to performance and governance of local authorities, to setting up a corporate joint committees, which we discussed at council last night. Right through to audit and governance, but also it does touch upon your role as a standards committee. So that's what I thought I'd bring to your attention at this meeting today. It also neatly fits in with the annual report, which we've just discussed, because I think it will mean that your annual report going forward will need to change. It will probably need a lot more padding out. it will probably need a lot more information in it because of this legislation that will come in next year. So in effect, the bill that is presently awaiting royal assent actually puts a duty on group leaders to take some responsibility for promoting and maintaining high standards of conduct by their members of their political group. We've already done a large part of that work already, so I think we're in a really good place to actually be able to deal with the legislation by having the annual meetings that we do have with the group leaders already, so that there is already a focus on what they are doing in terms of maintaining and promoting high standards of conduct. So in terms of the actual legislation, I've set out at paragraph 2.2 that the Clause 62 introduces a new duty on political group leaders in relation to standards of conduct. And the ethos behind the new duty is to ensure a culture within a local authority embracing the high standards of conduct, with both leaders and members accepting responsibility for their own actions, both individually and collectively. And I have to say, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the work that's gone into this section of the local government bill actually comes from Julie James, who was a member of the Assembly, who's been pushing this bill forward, and actually was one of my predecessor heads of legal. She was with the authority just as I joined, actually. She was my old boss. So she was an ex-monitoring officer as well, which I think has largely helped in developing parts of the legislation, particularly around the standards committee work. So I wouldn't be surprised if she's had a huge input into this. And then just moving on, paragraph 2.4, which sets out clause 63 of the bill, introduces a duty on the standards committee to provide an annual report to the authority as soon as possible after the end of each financial year. So again, we're in a good place to do that because we already do it. But it will need tweaking because you're going to have to set out in your report how the committee has discharged its functions during the financial year. And this is important as well and quite significant, I think, and it is a change. But you may also include recommendations to the authority about any matter in respect of which your committee has functions. So you might, for example, want to make a recommendation of further training. You might want to make recommendations in relation to group leaders, etc. And then the authority then must consider report, and within 3 months beginning with the day that it receives a report, and also include an assessment on the extent to which leaders of the political groups have complied with their duties. So it is quite a big change when you think about it. It will mean amending our report, but I do think we're in a really good place because we already report annually to council, and we also have the discussions with the group leaders, which I think you all welcome every year. So it's a for information report only, but I did think it important to bring to your attention prior to the bill receiving royal assent that we probably need to pick up in the early part of next year how we're going to deal with this, and whether or not we need to firm up our meetings with the group leaders, etc. And we certainly need to build in some sort of timeline about when our annual report is actually prepared and what goes into it. So that's all I have to say.
Gosh, so therefore, if something is deemed from the standards to be worth informing to the group leaders that a change or something needs to happen, then they have to undertake to complete within 3 months. Is that what you're saying? No.
They're going to consider it.
Right.
Yeah, your annual report must set out how your functions have been discharged, so your role, how you have undertaken your role, but it also can include an assessment on the extent to which the leaders of the political groups have complied with their duties, and their duty is to promote and maintain high standards of conduct by members within their own political groups. And what I'm saying is you're already in a good place to do that because you already have an annual meeting with the group leaders. So it is, some authorities don't do that, you see. So, you know, for them, it will be a bigger change. But I think we're in a really good place it's almost like the inclusion in the Local Government and Elections Bill has been based on what we're already doing in Swansea to a very great extent. And that's why I've referred to Julie James, you know, having worked here, having been a monitoring officer, and in many ways there's no one better than a monitoring officer actually drafting bits of this legislation.
Right, and that can be read. Have we been given the links on that full report or that bill?
I can send you the link to the bill. As I said, it's 200 odd pages. It's a very overarching bill. I've got it here in front of me. Actually, it goes into a LibreArch file.
Yes, yes. So it's something that we should all welcome and look forward to utilising.
Yes, and there will be, you know, there will be a report also going to the audit committee as well, because there are going to be some changes to the audit committee. So there'll be a similar report going to the audit committee.
Right.
Mike was supposed to speak.
Sorry, Mike, you wanted to say something?
Yes, just a question really to Tracy. I just trying to get my head around what you said. Does it mean if the Standards Committee make recommendation to a political leader and the political leader doesn't act on those recommendations, would he be then referred back to the Standards Committee?
Well, possibly. So if I'm just thinking this through, I would say we will be awaiting guidance on this. So this is just the legislation, and what I've quoted in the report is just what the legislation says. So there will need to be some further guidance on this. But I'm assuming what you would be saying is, say for example, we were a council where we had difficulties with a certain number of councillors who were constantly being referred to the Ombudsman, then it may be the Standards Committee might be picking this up with the group leader and saying, why is it we've got a problem with some of your councillors? What are you doing about it? So when it comes to you drafting your annual report, you will be saying in the annual report that we do note that a number of councillors are constantly being referred to the Ombudsman, and we have had discussions with the group leader, and we are expecting the group leader to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, and then what you will be doing is so you will report that to full council, and then what you will be doing then is monitoring it and see actually the performance of those councillors being improved, and if not, what is the group leader doing about it? So I think there would be that dialogue between the Standards Committee, the group leaders, and their annual report to full council. I think that's what's behind it, Councillor Lewis.
Okay, there we are. Thank you.
It is trying to shift the onus onto group leaders. The way it's phrased is a duty on group leaders and a duty on the Standards Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
But I think, sorry, can I just add?
Oh,
I think that's a really good point, Councillor. And, you know, it does come back to, we are anticipating that we will get guidance on this. I'm sure all monitoring officers throughout Wales are mulling this over in terms of what they're going to have to do. So as soon as we do get further guidance, rest assured I will be bringing that back to the committee.
Yeah, so my point at the end of the day is, have they got accountability for not acting on advice from the Standards Committee, basically?
Whether they can be referred to the Ombudsman.
Yes.
Mike Lewis wanted to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I suppose staying at two questions, if I may, Chair. Firstly, staying with 2.3, Tracy, if I may, in terms of the duty on political group leaders. You're right, we're in a good place starting off in terms of our annual meetings with the leaders, etc. Is it your view that we are doing sufficient as a Standards Committee for us to check that duty on group leaders, or do we need to do anything more proactively? So is it sufficient that we as a Standards Committee ask them once a year, you know, tell me how you promote those high standards? That's my first question. I'll come back to my second question, Chair, if I may.
I think we will. I think when I introduced it, I think we will certainly need to be looking at the early part of next year. When we set our work plan, we will need to put in there, we will be having meetings with the group leaders. We might need to go back to all the questions that we asked that were set out in the previous report. We might need to firm those questions up. I think it will be a much more detailed question session because you need to put it into context. To be asking the right questions so you can draft the right report to council at the end of the day. You need to have that evidence, don't you? So I think it's something we're going to need to pick up in the early part of next year in terms of reviewing the questions we ask, putting in a timetable and meetings with group leaders. I want to be ahead of the game on this. I don't want to wait for the guidance to come out. I need to go back and find out. Parts of this legislation will come in at different times. So we need to find out when this part of the legislation will come into effect. And I haven't checked that, to be honest. But I'd rather be ahead of the curve on this and get all our ducks in a row so we're ready to go. And as I say, the great thing when I read this is, well, actually, we're doing a lot of this already. This isn't a huge task for us, and it may be for some authorities. And all our group leaders are happy to turn up and appear in front of the Standards Committee. That might not be the case in some authorities.
Thank you, Tracy. Chair, if I may, my second question. Am I right in thinking that we've got local authority elections coming up next year?
We've got Senedd elections coming up next year.
But not local authority?
No, I think they're the year after.
Okay.
May 20 for local government, May 21 for Senedd.
Thank you. Okay, then I was going to ask whether we need to do anything else as a standing committee for new councillors, but we've got some time for that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have. It would have been, I think I'd be having a nervous breakdown if we had local authority elections as well. That would be an awful lot of work, particularly with this new legislation coming. It's an awful lot of work for monitoring officers and legal officers.
Can I just assist Mike on that? Sometime next year, the Democratic Services Committee will start its work on preparing for May 2022 for the local government elections. We'll be looking at things like training, etc. And like I did 5 years ago, I will Standards Committee about what I can put there about standards, code of conduct, things, about the training elements of them. Obviously, we can't change what the rules are, but we can. Obviously, we'll be mindful of this incoming bill to reflect on that as well. So you will be included like you were 5 years ago.
Thank you, Chair.
Anything else, Tracy, that you wish to on that subject?
No, that's it for me. As I said, it is a for information report only.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions before Tracy finishes that one? No. So, are you going to do the code of conduct or Tracy?
Sorry, we're on the next report now, item report 9.
9, yes. So this, again, I'm not going to add to this report at all. It is self-explanatory. Again, it's a for information report, but it does set out a summary of your meetings with the group leaders, chairs of committee and chief executive. I'm not proposing to go through it, Chair.
Thank you. Then Tracy, the code of conduct casebook.
Yes, sorry. Is there? I would just ask: is there anything anyone wants to add to that agenda item 9? Is there anything? It is. Hugh has very helpfully prepared the summary. Hugh and Alison. So if there is anything that you think needs to go in there, by all means, let us know, and we will look at it again.
Presuming that those that had read it, if they had any, they would have notified before. But if there is anybody in the meeting that wants to bring it forward now, then anybody? Yeah? I can't see, sorry.
No, Mike Lewis with hands.
Mike Lewis. Oh.
Sorry, Chair, just quickly scanning down. So the conversation we just had, Tracy, around the new the new bill, have we made reference to that? I'm looking quickly at 2.11. Future role of the Standards Committee.
No, we haven't referenced it in there because this is a report looking backwards.
Okay.
We could. I mean, it's only a report here for your information, so I don't think it needs to be amended, but certainly it goes back to what we discussed earlier, that we do need to re-look at the questions we're asking, and we need to look at what evidence we need to get in order to put into the annual report. So it's quite useful. A lot of these reports are all interlinked today, actually. They're all sort of leading up to the new provisions of the bill. So it's quite helpful. I think it's quite helpful. They're all on the agenda today.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Chair. I say just 2.11 future role. We might have referred to it, but I'm not precious.
Shall I move on, Chair, to the agenda item 10?
Yes, please.
So this is the Code of Conduct casebook. We haven't had many, not surprisingly, over COVID. I think this is the only one that has actually come out. It's only 2 cases. They're both Merthyr County Borough Council cases. Again, I'm not proposing to go through them in any detail. The first case is quite interesting, however, and I'll just summarise it for you, basically. It is an offence under legislation for a councillor to vote on setting the rate of council tax when they are themselves in arrears. Okay, a lot of councillors may not know that, but all I would say is that we do I can assure the Standards Committee that we are aware of this and we do make it known to councillors. I would either refer to it when I'm sending out my declaration of interest sheet prior to any council meeting, or we do some work in terms of members aware of the provisions of the legislation. Interestingly, in relation to the case, even though they did vote on setting the council tax rate, the Ombudsman found that it wasn't in the public interest to actually pursue the matter. They would have been one member amongst many members probably voting for the council tax rate to be set. So to that extent, it wouldn't have been a significant vote. I think that probably makes sense, actually. If I was working for the Ombudsman, I would have come up with the same decision. So, you know, no issue around the decision, but I just wanted to raise it with you just to give you some assurance that myself and Hugh are on this one and we do know about it and we will do something about it if we have that situation arising.
Anybody else got any comment? No?
Yes, can I just say to Tracy, when we have the next round of council tax increases, will you be airing that what you just told us about the council tax arrears before we vote, so that councillors are aware of the implications if they do vote and they are in arrears of council tax?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's not been an issue, Councillor Lewis. You know, we are on it, we are aware of it, and we do what we can to avoid any councillor being in that position.
Yeah, I am aware of one or two of the councillors find it really difficult at the moment financially, and I wouldn't like them to be caught out with that on top of their problems at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. In that case, that is number 11. Oh yes, this is the breach of code of conduct complaint. Number 11 item. That's you, Tracy, again. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As I referred to earlier at the back of the agenda, this is just the list of the complaints that have been made to the Ombudsman. Again, you'll see that the vast majority of them, the Ombudsman has simply just not investigated. I think that shows a good record of councillor behaviour. The only one, there's three, the third, sorry, it's the second one down, actually relates to Mumbles Community Council, and you see that there was an action there in terms of training on standing orders and financial regs within that community council. and members' obligations under the Code of Conduct be provided to the Council. That's the only one I wanted to draw to your attention.
Okay. Right. Yes, got any comments on those, please? No. Thank you. Right, so with the next item, which is the work plan, obviously now in light of what you were saying about restructuring our meetings and the questions, the work plan would reflect that in 21?
Yeah, I think I'll work with Hugh and Alison, and we'll put a timetable together for group leaders, chief exec meetings, etc. We'll have a look at the questions as well, and I'll bring another report early part of next year to the committee so we can revisit the questions we ask, see if we want to make any amendments. So have a little think about what you think we should be asking. Can I also add as well, Chair, that I did a significant piece of work prior to us going into lockdown and COVID around our procedure in the event, and I hope it would be an unlikely event, that we do receive a investigation from the Ombudsman's office. So I looked at the procedure we had was very outdated. So I've drafted from completely afresh a new procedure. I was going to bring it to, I think it was the March meeting, which was cancelled. I do need to tweak it slightly because in the intervening months, the Adjudication Panel for Wales has come up with a little bit of guidance around procedure. So I haven't had time to consider that. So I'll review that. I may need to amend the procedure, but then I'll bring it to the committee. I'll send it out in advance, obviously, so you can all consider it. Michaela, you might be particularly interested in it from your legal background in terms of the procedure and the process and whether it actually makes sense to you or whether we're going to trip ourselves up in any way. Also, Cardiff Council, if you remember, Cardiff had a number of complaints that were dealt with by the Adjudication Panel for Wales. They've amended their procedure in light of their own experiences in dealing with a very complicated and lengthy complaint. So I've noted that they've taken their new procedure to their standards committee. So I might have a look at that again to see if there's any good things in there that we can copy over onto our procedure. But I want to put that sometime early next year onto the work plan as well for consideration. That's quite a meaty item, actually. It's about how we deal with any complaint that may be referred to the Standards Committee.
So I would suggest that that would require a meeting of its own content, and then the meetings that we're going to have with group leaders and the question, that would be another meeting. I wouldn't see the two of them in one. They're too big an item. Yeah. So therefore, by about April, we will have undertaken both of those. Is that what you're saying, Tracy?
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Interesting, though, from the point that that you undertook to look at and revise our processes, and then it's always good when somebody has gone through the process and to say, well, what worked for you? What questions came up that you then needed to investigate more? And that then gives you a better workplace. So I think it is worth looking at their processes, as you said, at Cardiff, not from the point of lifting exactly what they've done, but it's always good if somebody has done a due process to say what benefits did they learn from it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else got any questions in light of that for the work plan? No? So therefore it would be for Tracy and Hugh to coordinate and let us know. Thank you very much. The date of the next meeting. So, okay, in light of what you've just said, providing nothing comes up in between, are we talking about probably February, March time, or
it's March on the agenda? It is the 19th of March.
We might need to put an additional meeting in
yes.
In February, probably.
I was going to say, but that puts pressure on you. Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay. Fine. So the February one will be either the new questions or it will be to discuss the due process. So do you want to decide which one that's going to be, or leave that open?
I'll liaise with you on that. I think because it's extremely busy for all officers at the moment, as you can well imagine. So trying to fit priorities in is extremely difficult. So hopefully by February the process should be finalised, so we can deal with either that in February or the questions. And we might have some further guidance from Welsh Government as well, so I can bring that to the committee.
Okay. Sorry, I was aware that I was putting pressure on you. That's why I was giving the optional for you.
Oh no, I appreciate that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else with anybody else? No, that's fine. So we'll be advised then of the February date and the February agenda, and then the next meeting, which is the 19th of March, week and diary date, and then Alison will let us know what are the dates and the items to be discussed. Okay. Thank you very much, Tracy. Any other questions by anybody? No? Well, in that case, it's a Merry Christmas to everybody. It's not really a choice word, is it? A Merry Christmas? A Happy Christmas, yes. A happier Christmas. Anyway, thank you very much, and it's nice to see you all. And thank you, Mike, for taking forward, particularly because changes are happening, and I think it'll be good that you're part of those changes, because it'll be you really leading it onwards then.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Who?
Yeah.